Absolutely. Okay. Now the way we've got it organized is in an effort to lighten everybody's workload.
Yeah.
Everyone across sixth grade should be sharing it. So you just need, when you do it, find out what sections your parallel teaches, and then list them all up here. Then you've got the day and the date. Pretty straightforward. It depends how your textbook is organized with respect to units and lessons. The units are generally numbered. In my textbook, for instance, the lessons are broken down in the reader in stories, in the write book into what we are writing about. So usually my lesson plan is going to look like a unit number and then the title of the piece that we're covering, okay?
That's the lesson, is the title of the story.
The title of the story, or
okay.
if I am doing something else, like for instance, something out of the writer's resource, I tend to put in what exactly it is we are covering. Okay. And then from there we move to objectives. Now the objectives, the Blue Book is a pretty handy reference for a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
The Blue Book, as I'm sure you noticed in the beginning, has a lot of different things inside of it that distinguish between objectives and outcomes. Generally, objectives stress what the goal of your lesson is from the standpoint of the teacher, while learning outcomes address the behaviors of the students, what they should be doing to accomplish those goals. Now, she would like it at the most maybe one or two objectives, okay? So depending on how many objectives you have here, you will have to go ahead and fill out the appropriate boxes here.
You can put 2 or 3 objectives in this place?
No more than 2.
No more than 2.
No more than 2. So if you have 2 objectives here, then you should have 2...
one each.
Different behaviors for both the teacher and the learner to accomplish those objectives, okay? We'll come back to this in a second. The next one, the student's self-assessment, is how should the student be able to observe his own behavior to know that he accomplished the objectives.
Okay.
So, for instance,
how can they prove to themselves?
Exactly. What is the key they have? In this one, very simply, for this one, their student self-assessment method was peer-to-peer question and answer. They must be able to give the correct information when prompted. Another one, a more observable one, when we are comparing and contrasting 2 things, are they able to compare and contrast the themes presented by Brooks and Crane, 2 different authors? Are they able to understand on their own how these 2 works are different? Okay, differentiation. A doctor said that she would like to see 3 different sets of materials for each level of students. So for instance here, today, in my next period in class 10, I will have my highest level students complete the selection assessment A, B, and C completely. Okay? Now, in B, my B level students, which are the mid-range ones, are going to complete selection assessment B and C, which is a little more challenging than selection assessment A. Okay, so my lowest group is going to complete the easiest one. Okay, here we have just the resources.
What is differentiation again? It's just the different levels have different. One's harder than the other.
Yes. Well, let me back up. The minimum that our doctor would like to see from us or expects from us on a daily basis is differentiation of material.
Okay.
So for
like the hardcover and the workbook, and then.
Well, for instance, I'm going to have them working out of a worksheet.
Yeah.
Okay. So now.
I see.
In our meeting on Saturday, she mentioned that rather than singling out kids, saying, and kids, you know how they talk and they notice that, I've got a different worksheet than you, that means I'm at a different level than you. What they do in the science and math curriculum is they print out one worksheet with 3 levels of problems on there. Okay, so everyone gets the same worksheet. However, the expectations are differentiated in that case. In that case, she expects the A level to complete them all, the B level to complete the smaller ones, and the C level to complete the easiest. Then she was corrected by Dr. Mahasan, who says that each level, when the ministry comes, they need to see 3 different worksheets for 3 different groups of people.
Oh.
Okay, so I think I just may have needlessly confused you. The way that Mrs. Mahasan said was she wants to see the ministry wants to see 3 different worksheets for 3 different levels. Now, that's not the only way you can differentiate your instruction.
Okay.
You could also have either your A-level students who understand the material quicker coach the C-level students.
Because they're all in the same class.
Exactly.
So there are students in this classes that are high intelligence students and low, even like quasi-handicapped students in the same class. Okay.
And it's not only that, but some of these kids are studying in an English curriculum school for the first time. They've been in an Arabic curriculum for the majority of their lives, and now they're well behind. So and it's more effective to see how they interact with higher level students because they need that as their reference. We can't just put them all in one class and say we're going to lower the expectations and level, because they need to be able to see how the higher functioning kids do things so they can mimic it. So there's 3, but you can also differentiate in your instruction. You can use maybe a sound bite that has audio visual but also subtext, and that addresses multiple intelligence. Or you can expect A-level students to complete more of the same tasks than your C-level students. So there's 3 basic ways to differentiate your materials, which Dr. Mahasan needs for the ministry. You can also differentiate your instruction, which just takes a lot of continuous evaluation of your own resources and how you put your lessons together. And then the third one is differentiating expectations. You expect them to do more and these to do less. So 3, expectations, resources, and instruction.
So, like, would an example of that be like if you had something that they were watching, and maybe the language was spoken kind of in a complex way with a lot of difficult vocabulary, but then maybe there's some subtitles that broke it down and made it much more simple?
Absolutely.
With something like that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Now, these are your resources that you're going to use in the lesson. For this lesson, I've got worksheets I have over there. I'm going to use the data show. The students need their copybook and their textbook. Okay? So, this is the strategy that we will employ. This is the strategy that you will use, or the methods, the approach that you will use as a teacher to accomplish these objectives.
Okay.
Many different strategies, I believe, are listed here on this table in the blue book.
What page is it?
Page.
These aren't
It's
numbered.
at the front. No, they're not. So it's next page. Next page. There you. Next one. I'm sorry. I'll keep going. I'm sorry. It's at the end of that. Second. There you go.
Okay.
So these are many of the different instructional strategies. The teaching strategy that I'm very fond of is problem-based learning, guided inquiry or discovery. So, I try to include, after I list my objectives, what the problem is that we will be trying to uncover as the lesson goes on. Now, the best way to ensure that problem-based learning is effective is use a tie-down to real-life situations, okay? So what I want them to do is understand how verbal irony can be an effective communication tool. A lot of the times we don't really say what we mean, or we don't mean what we say. We use sarcasm, other techniques to get other people to come around and see our point of view. The outcomes. Now, to be able to accomplish these objectives, to determine the theme of a text and analyze in detail how it merges and is refined by specific details, they need to be able to know what irony is and find examples in the text. Okay? And then to be able to read and comprehend poems, They've got to make inferences, analyze the imagery of what the picture the author is painting with words, and draw conclusions about universal themes. In these cases, is war really kind? Now, then we go from here. So then these are the lesson. This is the lesson introduction. Okay, so for the first 5 to 7 minutes, I'm referencing the objectives and I'm sort of laying out what the goal of the lesson is. I go through the objectives after I've written them on the board, and then I pose the problem. You guys got to be able to tell me what's verbal irony, and you have to show me examples of being able to use it as effective communication. Okay, I always try to bring it back to previously discussed things, so like the themes. Okay, so for this objective, they need to be able to identify at the beginning of class very simple but broad themes. Good versus evil, the role of man in nature, things like that we've already talked about with previous examples. Okay, but at the same time, I want to give them, and once we finish that, so they can read and comprehend the poem, I want to give them a little bit of information. I want to let them know what to expect. I'm guiding them. I'm giving them an idea. Okay, give a quick summary of the poem and ask them to skim for words they don't know. Then I can scaffold it.
What do you mean by scaffold?
Basically, I've picked out these words that I imagine may be difficult for them. So I'm going to tell them what those know at the beginning, so that way they're able to comprehend the poem as they read it.
Give them the hardest part first?
Yes, or at least let them know what to expect. And then that they're going to tell me what if they don't understand anything else. And I always want them to have a purpose or a prediction. I want them to get in the habit of trying to set a purpose for their reading and predict what's going to happen, so that way they know what they're looking for as they read the poem. Now, in this one, to help them understand the example of irony and themes, I've got an animation of the poem, okay? And this animation that I found on YouTube is 2 minutes long, and basically it's very graphic. Although throughout the poem the author repeats war is kind, the imagery used in this animation is in stark contrast to war being a positive thing. Okay? And then this one, I've got a second clip of the poem, but this time the lyrics are on screen like subtitles as it's being dictated, so they can sort of see how it comes off and how it's pronounced. Okay, so this one is going to help them just understand basically the flow of the poem, how it sounds. Then after they've seen these 2 clips, they've got an exercise and a worksheet. They've got 3 different worksheets. So this is the time when they're going to be answering the worksheets. I skipped back and forth between my 2 lessons, but
I haven't used any worksheets in class yet. It's only been the workbook and the hardback.
Okay.
So that's important to get outside material and.
Well, this material, these worksheets that I have, come directly from the software.
Which software?
The discs that come with the books.
Oh, okay.
So, if you need help tracking that down, we need to find that.
Okay.
Because those have a lot of resources on them.
I didn't know they had discs.
Yeah.
I didn't know there was some discs that came with it.
But then for here, these are the behaviors. Again, this is your lesson development. This should be the crux of the lesson, where they are doing the work that helps them accomplish these objectives. Okay, so basically, I want them to identify the I've already, when I fill this out, I have an idea of what the goal or the focus of these worksheets are, and I put that in there. By completing these worksheets, they're going to be able to identify the contrast between what is being said in the poem and the pictures in the animation. They're going to complete the assigned worksheets with the help of the text. And then I've also got them answering 2 questions or call-outs because they appear in the margin next to the text on these 2 pages. Okay, and then for the last part, I want to go back. I want to bring them back to drive the point home to our original problem, and tell them how can irony be effective communication.
That's like summing up.
Yes, but it's a little different than here. So I'm leading the summary here through my through
Because you
getting.
still have another objective to cover after this first one, right?
Well, I do them at the same time.
Oh, okay.
Okay, they're hand in hand.
Okay.
They're done at the same time. I don't spend 7 minutes here and then do this one, but
Yeah, right
all the work is done together. So yes, what I want them to do is I want them to handle the whole problem. So how can it be effective communication? I bring them back to our original problem, and then it's up to them to answer it. They say, well, Crane in this poem is saying war is kind, but the image he paints with the rest of the poem shows how terrible it really is. Okay? And then I push it from there. So what's his attitude towards war? That war is a terrible thing, that the families suffer. Okay? And then I say, so what's the most important part of the lesson? And then regarding irony, I either want them to have a good understanding of the subject material itself, or how the subject material helps to explain what the problem is.
And so is there any cross-referencing, like with the other classes or real-life experience?
Yes, we get to that down here. Okay, the cross-curriculum.
Oh, there you go.
The historical context is the American Civil War. It was a terrible time, brother against brother, and I go into that a little bit. With English, we've got so much flexibility. We've got more flexibility to be able to achieve cross-curriculum than all the other ones do. I think, in this one, if I give you a real... Where's this? This is 9. Okay, I got this wrong.
How would you include a math aspect in here if you were going to...
Excellent. I've got that. That's what I was flipping for, so I wanted to show you. Where's my...
You have statistics about the war.
If for this next lesson that we're going to do today, where did I do it? My cross-curriculum was, let me see if I can find it real quick. I'll come back to it, but I'll finish this and then I'll get it from over there. The formative assessment, this is how I evaluate rather informally whether or not they got the main points of the lesson. 3, 2, 1, quick write. Tell me 3 things you didn't know, 2 that you already knew, 1 you didn't understand. And I've got those sheets in my drawer over here, if you're free to use them.
Okay.
And then I do that as we're completing the summary in the last 5-6 minutes of class. Okay, and then the daily life examples. Using misdirection and verbal irony can be effective convincing tactics. And it also teaches them to find solutions to problems by making sure they're asking the right questions. Is this guy telling me what I just want to hear, or is he trying to prod me in a direction so that I'm making the choice making his choice for him?
Mm-hmm. Putting words in his mouth.
Yes, exactly. And then the summative assessment is the more formal assessment. So for this one, to make sure that to assess them, I'm going to grade the worksheets for accuracy. I collect them at the end and I mark them. Was this kid paying attention? And then you always have to provide ongoing question and answer. You have to put them. Are you getting this? Are you getting this? What do kids always say when you ask them if you understand? Oh yeah. But their eyes tell you no.
Yeah.
So you really gotta push them. I'll come back to this for examples on math. I got. Here we go. This is what I was looking for. So for in this one, the plot against the people, this story, one of the learning outcomes by being able to read this is they're going to develop classification skills, identifying sarcasm, invariance in tone and diction. Now, their behaviors to accomplish these objectives transfer to other curriculums in this term. Classification is an important skill that is used in the scientific process, math, and the rest of the liberal arts in general. So you've got to be able to identify and separate, right?
Okay.
So,
identify and separate.
And then at the bottom you've got your space for homework. But that's kind of it in a nutshell. Does that help?
Yeah, that helps a lot.
Okay, good. Because and then this is a relatively nice. I'm happy to see you using this because this was like I